And here we go in 3, 2, 1. Is anyone hearing the music?
Yeah, I heard it.
I don't hear it at all.
All right, well, it's over.
I don't hear the music at all. Welcome, everybody, to Ring Post Radio. We're not going to do another take. Chris, is this the worst podcast you've done this weekend?
It's no worst. I mean, we don't know yet. We just started.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say it's been 56 seconds.
I'll take the diplomatic approach that it can't be the worst until it's over.
All right.
Sort of like Okada versus Danielson 1.
Oh man, you got it in early. Wow, you didn't even wait. You didn't even wait for us to get even close to the match.
I would never.
All right.
What happened to my audio?
I'll take over for Ryan.
Go, please.
So, Chris, thank you for joining us here today for the Wrestle Kingdom 18 preview. Obviously, a lot going on in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling these days. If you don't live under a rock, of course. We have a new president in New Japan in the form of Hiroshi Tanahashi, which I don't know. I find pretty exciting just as a fan of the product. No idea if he's going to be a good president. No idea what he has planned. But when you learned about the change, what were your feelings regarding Tanahashi as president and director, I believe?
Yeah, president and director. Oh, wow, was probably my first feeling. Like, oh, wow, okay. And then I sort of had to dig in on whether it's kind of a figurehead role or like a real role, by just kind of asking around or just looking into some of the history of that role and when it was held by wrestlers or, active or pseudo-active wrestlers. And, as I kind of talked to some people and figured some stuff out, like it feels like a real role. It's an advancement of his ambassador role that he's already kind of lived in for his whole career there almost. But I do think that it is a response to a couple of things. I think the move from ultimately Bushy Road, who owns the company, I think it's a response to some general unrest with the wrestlers, specifically with the talent, right? For various reasons.
Can we name a wrestler? No.
I mean, no, I can't, and only because I don't know.
At time of recording, I believe Dave reported a wrestler's name. I believe Dave Meltzer, of course, of the Wrestling Observer. I believe he reported Okada was someone that was upset.
Right. And that's someone that has been in the conversation already as someone who is, surprisingly willing to leave New Japan. And that seed got planted. And I think that got run right up the flagpole real quick. And I do think that that's part of how we got here. And I think it's also a response to everything that's been happening with Stardom and injuries.
Yeah.
And generally, maybe the quote unquote office not listening to or not guiding the wrestlers to to a sustainable career ultimately.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a couple of things that play there. And I think, everything I've heard from wrestlers and from backstage is quote unquote party in the dojo. I mean, like they're thrilled, right? They're thrilled that this is happening, that someone with a wrestler's mindset will be, ready to, or will be in a position to influence the direction of the company, whether or not he's got the final say. Some of that stuff, like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think the booking is changing.
But that doesn't mean that someone in that type of position couldn't influence the booking. But if we think Hiroshi Tanahashi didn't already have a voice in the booking room, like we're kidding ourselves. I mean, he's a pretty important dude. And if he has a feeling about something, he's probably going to share it and people are going to listen. But this does kind of legitimize that, which I think is cool. I think if nothing else, it's just brought some good vibes to this season. And, that's worth a lot. But I love that he's talking about all the things that, someone reached out to me and had some questions about kind of, is he qualified for this role? And when it really comes down to it, like running a pro wrestling company in Japan is so much, it's less dynamic than like being the CEO of a wrestling company in America, because your focus in Japan is one thing: sell tickets. Like sell tickets. And with ticket sales and a great environment for your shows, the presentation gets bigger, the presentation gets better, the foreign fans catch on. So his big thing is, can we put some, title matches in different cities so we can sell more tickets, and can we sell out the Tokyo Dome, right? Like,
which is quite the undertaking.
That's a humongous undertaking. I don't even know what that means, right? Like selling out. We don't know. No one really knows. I mean, we might know once Taylor Swift does her shows. We'll know how many people she can stack in there. But like, I mean, and I honestly don't know if that's a thing in Japan. It probably is, right? Why wouldn't it be?
It's Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Different phenomenon.
It's fine. But we don't really know what that means for a pro wrestling show. Does it mean, the fake numbers from the 80s, from the early 90s, or does it
bring the fake numbers back?
Does it mean exactly? Does it mean 50,000? Probably something more like 50,000 is my bet, with staging and all that stuff. So I don't think it's out of the question. Ticket sales this year are great. They were well outpacing last year. And I think the hype for the Naito roll call is gonna, bring in a pretty healthy walk up. So I think they're gonna surpass 30K this year, and I think that's healthy business, even if on our end of the world, the growth seems to have stalled.
Sure. And there was that financial report that they put out that kind of financially New Japan is kind of back where it was pre-pandemic, which
close at least.
Yeah, close at the very least. And it's like, it took several years to get to that point, maybe a couple years too long, but hey, we're back there, I guess. We're pretty much back there. And Tanahashi obviously has a lot to figure out in terms of his new position, but I feel like you're right. I feel like at the very least he can handle it. He is very well known as being a locker room leader in the back, having a wrestler, not just a wrestler, but the ace in the front office, or the back office, wherever the office is positioned, where having someone like that, having someone in that position could be very good. Does he bring in anyone else into that office? That's the question I had. I think that's a later conversation for him, but he has some power now. He has some say. I wonder if he has any friends that he wants.
I'd say he has more power now. He definitely had some power, just being Hiroshi Tanahashi.
You get my point.
and we have already learned something new about Tanahashi, which is tremendous, is that he's never been tired.
Well, ever since that Kota Ibushi meeting, he started to learn a new way of learning.
He's on the 25-hour
exactly
25-hour calendar. Yeah,
he's on the 25-hour calendar right there.
No, I mean Tanahashi's never been tired, and MJF is writing like 4,000 words about being tired. So I mean, different strokes. It's all good. But I mean, the man tells us he's never been tired. I'm inclined to believe him. So because he's never lied to me, and look at the man. Is that a face of a liar? I don't think so.
Definitely not the hair of a liar.
It's the hair of a tease, though, if you know what I mean.
That's true.
Scotty, we haven't done our year look at for every wrestling company yet, but
yeah,
I feel like Chris would be so fantastic on that show as well. Just being like, hey, how do you think AEW's going to do? How do you think they've done this past year? Well,
I want to be really clear. I'm an AEW fan. I sort of do some work for them occasionally too, right? So I just thought it was really funny as I'm reading MJF's piece today. Like it's like bullet point number 5. I'm tired, and I was like, man, my president said he's never been tired, and this man's out here putting it out there that he is tired. I was like, I don't know.
I just assume everyone's tired. I mean,
they should. Everyone in pro wrestling in any role is probably tired because it's never ending.
Yeah, remember that Okada documentary that came out on New Japan World?
Yeah, that was great, actually.
That guy was like broken.
Yes.
That was years ago. Oh man. Anyway,
Oh,
well, speaking, you brought up AEW. This is something I want to know about. How has that sort of transition? Obviously, Kevin Kelly still uses your independent services
Sure.
for notes for his commentary on Collision. How has that been for you? Obviously, not as much history in AEW as compared to New Japan. How is that? Obviously you have the tournament bringing into it for the Continental Classic, but how is everything on Collision? How is that sort of diving into AEW stats? How has that been for sort of you, Chris?
Yeah, so when AEW rolled out in 2019, like that's when I really started to do this kind of publicly with New Japan. So I started to do AEW stuff, just independently on my own, just to track it. They were the hot product, right? Something to put out there and get some, buzz about my work. And I sort of fell off of it because it became patently obvious to me that kind of the booking trends were going to be like, everyone's going to win on dark, and there's not that many big matches to leverage for me to have content to put out.
Yeah.
Or that it would be interesting on a week to week basis. So, I sort of backed away from that, but so I've always had sort of a running document tracking AEW. Now I didn't keep it up to date as I did with New Japan because I wasn't really working with the product, but when Kevin reached out to me and let me know that he was taking the big seat at Collision, I got myself up to date, and I figured out sort of the approach to how to look at AEW in a unique way. And there's a lot less to work with, especially on the week to week TVs. Oftentimes, even Collision, which is, in my opinion, a more wrestling focused show, there's just not that much to draw from. Even if I'm pulling from people's whole careers, it's not like a touring national brand like New Japan, which gives you just oodles of data to work with and trends to see pretty quickly. So I've had to kind of find my way, and often what I end up finding with AEW is things like someone's results in main events or something really specific, right? Like really drilling something down to the point where it's like, this person in main events on Collision is 7-0, and it's like, okay, that's neat. That's a good one. Right. And because that's always what I'm digging in and hunting for. Right. I do these kind of big packets for the broadcast teams that have like everything I look at, but then the bullet points that I pull out or put out on Twitter or really highlight in the body of the work is always that type of stuff where it's like, I drilled this down to the point where I'm helping to create a little bit of uncertainty about, matches that are generally perceived to be a certain win or loss for someone. So, everything I do with Kevin, a lot of times I send stuff off and I kind of know it's just, maybe he'll analyze it and find something, but I didn't. And that's honestly more often than not what happens, because he'll look at it and be like, oh, this is interesting. Like he'll wait for that moment in the match where it crosses the 10-minute threshold. And he's like, oh, Samoa Joe wins his matches in, he wins X% of his matches in under 10, but anything that goes over 10, he's this. And Kevin finds a lot of that stuff himself. So a lot of what I'm doing is, ironically, just pulling together the data and the information. And it's always been a strength of Kevin's to look at that stuff and pull things out that even I didn't find. But when I find something great, like I'm going to shout it from the rooftops and make sure that gets used, because, my whole thing is to create that uncertainty in a world of pro wrestling. Right. And like to use, really detail oriented stuff to create that, like, oh, maybe he's not going to just win this in a flash. Right. So, so it's been fun. I mean, most of the time it's a little tough to do because I don't know the match order for AEW. Sure. So the approach is just so different, but every now and then Kevin shoots me a text on Saturday afternoon and he's like, hey, this is this. And, here, maybe can you pull something together for this thing or whatever. And that's, it's a thrill. It's always a thrill to just be able to contribute to some cool stuff. And, but they've got a team of people that does similar stuff there. It's just a little less deep dived, but I would love to continue to contribute to that team in whatever way I can.
That's what I always loved about the sport of pro wrestling, is that it brings out a different side of a story that wrestling could be telling. That's what I've always loved about your work, Chris, is that like,
Thank you.
So much of it can obviously be, about, I don't know, let's say devils or not. But so much of it can also just be, as we saw sort of with the Continental Classic, that idea of like, this guy can has won this so many matches. This guy can win is very good at the 10-minute mark, but otherwise past that. I mean, it was like, that's like a common thing. If I recall correctly, that was always like a complaint, not a complaint, but an issue of like Mike Tyson in boxing.
Sure. Yeah.
The longer he went, he had like really no endurance. It was just that he's so good in like that first 5 minutes or so. And then the longer he went, he would just get drained, and it was so much easier to beat him. And obviously that later got brought over to Mike Tyson's Punch Out. But I've always found that fascinating because it's so like an aspect of wrestling that I feel like could be brought up more. I feel it'd be so much interesting for a match to happen and be like, it's after 5 minutes,
right?
How he can handle it, and he does, and a wrestler can't. It's fascinating. I feel like I would love to see that more, but what you do is that's what we really enjoyed, and that's obviously why we have you on the show all the time.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think my whole thing is that I really want to make wrestling more approachable for everyone, and I think that like core statistics that people are familiar with is approachable, right? And it's how I learned about everything that's happened in New Japan as I looked at this stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, this guy wrestles a lot, but like he never wins, and he never gets the pin, even when he does win, like stuff like that. Like, and New Japan really lends itself to that, like I said, and I think that I'm lucky to have found that lane. And that offers me the opportunity to have conversations like this, or to be connected to someone like Kevin Kelly, and to have conversations about what my mindset about pro wrestling is, right? So I can pull together all the data like an aggregator all you want, but I love the ability or the opportunity to analyze, and that's why I love to work with all the broadcasters. Like, I just think it's it's a cool lane for me. And honestly, I've gotten it so automated that it's pretty easy. So it's fun.
So what you're saying is Collision was a lot easier to give notes for when CM Punk was around because he always main evented. Got it.
But working tag matches don't give me much.
That's true. That's
you
true.
know, it's really the single stuff that always is going to be the highlight, unless it's a tag team that's like really getting after something. Yeah.
My joke question, Scotty, was going to be how easy was it to Chris talked about making wrestling more available to people. My joke question was going to be how easy is it to explain round robin tournaments to make that sort of wrestling available to the AEW audience?
Again, my whole thing is to make it easier to be a fan. I mean, easier to understand. And I honestly, I remember seeing the first, G1 that I paid attention to, and I was like, what are the rules? Who gets the what? And that they didn't have English commentary on it yet. So I was like, Googling and trying to figure it out. And I was like, okay, round robin, I'm familiar with that. I'm a sports guy, right? But round robins aren't familiar to American sports audiences.
Yeah. It's hard to juggle all the elimination scenarios.
Well, I mean, and most of that's a joke. I mean, I love to get into it, right? But most of that's like, but what if this happens? It's like, okay,
we got an insane five-way potential.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna pull out the sign that says it's a work, right? I'm like, it's a work. They're not gonna do it. But again, AEW then pulled out the three-way for the final of the one league, and I think that was clever. Frustrating, but clever. And now we know what they do in the sense of a tie. Also,
I look forward to the five-way.
We probably know what New Japan would do in that scenario as well now, because if they're still doing knockout stage tournaments, they may do that. But I mean, the Continental Classic, I think they pulled it off. I think it was a great tournament. It was well booked. I had a lot of fun covering it. I had a lot of fun helping people understand the purpose of it all, and what everything meant, right? And that's my role around here, right? My role in the Twitterverse is to be helpful. and to make it all a little bit easier to track and pay attention to. And I know there were certain points during the beginning of the announcement of that tournament that I might have gotten a little snarky, but it was in the vein of being helpful. I mean, it was in the vein of, and honestly, like in hopes that someone there found those tweets that they were getting a lot of attention, and that they then realized that they needed to over-explain some of this
participants.
stuff. And well, that. But I think it's been a win. I think it's been a win for guys like me who enjoy wrestling for that. And I think there's all comers will figure it out.
One day.
How to put our money where our mouth were, or whatever.
I think you nailed that, Scotty.
I had money in my mouth.
The entire tournament.
The whole tournament. I'm eating money.
We should probably talk about New Japan,
huh? What a show. Yeah, Scotty, go ahead.
So Wrestle Kingdom 18. We'll get back to that. As much as I love making jokes. Big show here, obviously, for many reasons. There's a lot of change coming for New Japan, not just in the office, but of course, we know Will Ospreay's leaving soon, and that's one of the biggest names in New Japan on the way out. Obviously, the rumors of Kazuchika Okada have been apparent over the past month or so, but they have seemed to quiet down after a new president walked in the door. I'm not saying anything, though. Dave Meltzer said Okada wanted Obari out. I just read that on my little newsletter to my left here.
In PDF form now.
In PDF form, yes, it's very nice looking.
Do you think Dave needed help to convert it to the all PDF, or do you think Dave's doing that himself?
I'm not going to share all that I know.
Interesting. He's got inside PDFs.
No,
he's
Dave,
holding on to.
My understanding is that Dave had a very particular system of how he got the Observer into existence every week, and it had to have changed to be able to do a well-formatted PDF. So you would think something changed. Maybe he got a new computer. The last time I saw Dave, I was sitting next to him at All Out 2021. And he had like the biggest laptop I've ever seen someone traveling with. And I almost was like, Dave, when did you, because I was in a suite and Dave happened to be in the suite next to us. So I sat next to Dave with a suite partition. And like, I was like, what is that computer? Like, it's like plugged in, like the whole shot, like
the desktop.
and he's just, I mean, the man's a machine. Like I was like, I would like peek over. I'd be like, wow. Like no wonder he can type so many words, or like post so many words in the Observer. So that's neither here nor there, but something had to have changed. But I mean, if you're a Wrestling Observer subscriber, download them PDFs. They're beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
They are.
I wonder if the Hall of Fame is going to change, or if it's still going to be it's insane sort of process. But anyways, go ahead, Scotty.
But as I was saying, is the excitement level there? It is Wrestle Kingdom season. I think it is. I get excited for Wrestle Kingdom season. I'm sure you do as well. Doesn't matter what the card is, almost ever. But the more I talk about this card, the more I look at this card, the more excited I get about this show. Do you feel the same way, especially making the rounds here?
Yeah, I think once we got the full card, I got really excited. Because then you can kind of picture how the show is going to go. That some of the things you were hoping for have been added to the card, things like that. So when we got the full card announcement, I was like, this is good. It was like one of those things where I was like, all right, like wasn't really sure. I started to see the writing on the wall with where they were headed, but once you can kind of confirm like, okay, this is a good one, then I was thrilled. And a lot of that stuff happened on that last announcement because you got the young guys on the card. And that's so important to me.
Yes.
As I've been talking about everywhere I've gone for the last year, like we're so in the midst of a transitional period for New Japan. So getting that new generation in some spot on the card, I love, right? So seeing Tsuji and Uemura in the singles match, and then seeing Kiyomiya and Narita and Shota Umino all on in a match, like that was meaningful to me. And I know a lot of people are talking about how they wish those guys were in higher spots or against a different generation. I love that they're fighting each other. You know why? Because we're going to point back to this Wrestle Kingdom in 5, 6, 7 years and say like that was the start, right? That was the start of this generation, of this peak, right? And I don't know what that peak's going to look like, but there's another peak coming because wrestling works in cycles. And, you know, we're in a weird transitional phase where New Japan has kind of figured out its lane in pro wrestling as a whole again. And I think that, I think that the peak is not too far off either. Like, I think that they're going to be able to rebuild very quickly, and they'll know what the risks are now with, you know, operating in a world that has an AEW in it. Yeah,
I think so. Speaking about that AEW part of it is like, I think like this year, or I should say next year, 2024 is going to be very interesting for a lot of different companies, and New Japan especially. Obviously, a new president is going to have its own new sort of things to work out and figure out. But, you know, there is a lot of new changeover. I mean, if, God forbid, Okada left, then they have to figure out so much stuff almost immediately. I mean, that would be 3 of their top guys, Jay White, Will Ospreay, and Kazuchika Okada, basically out of the company within 6 months to a year. That would be incredibly devastating to any promotion. So having these guys wrestle each other and bring up slowly but surely, you know, it's what New Japan does best, is that put them on a boiling point. They're slowly putting them on a simmer right now, slowly putting up these new generations up on the card, facing each other, so that down the line we have more historic rivalries because we have 5 years of data to go back on. And I think you're completely right. Is those young guys matches is really going to be the focal point, the key point for the next cycle, which is probably really starting in 2024 for New Japan.
Yeah, because they're all back now, right? We had to wait for Uemura to come back, and we had to wait for Amino to like get it together. Hey, he has gotten it together. He has it together all the way. But this time last year we were talking about Umino as a fraud, and then he had the Naito match.
Who's we?
Chris and I were
we the collective.
I wasn't. I've been a believer since day one.
And then I was a believer, but you still gotta give me something to believe in.
Give him a break.
And then he had the Naito match, and I was real worried. But man, something clicked with that dude. He's incredible. He's the future ace for real. So
yes.
But my guy is still Yuya Uemura. I have a spot in my heart. I have a spot in my heart carved out for Yuya Uemura. I have since day one. He's been the guy that I looked at and said, like, he's the dude. And then I was at Resurgence 2021 when he had just gone on an excursion and he got the pin in the multi-man match, and you should have seen this face. Like, I was just like thrilled, like a little teenager that just saw Taylor Swift. Like, I was so excited for this man. And I mean, so he's still my guy. So I'm real curious about that singles match that got added to the card with Tsuji.
This is a fascinating podcast because we got a Uemura fan, we got a whatever Scotty is.
Shooter. What the hell?
Well, which nickname are we going with?
We go with Shooter. We always go with Shooter.
Okay.
Never go with the Roughneck. Never.
The roughneck Shooter with the 2 jackets and the 3 different colors and
the wristbands, like a Taylor Swift concert.
And a half of everyone's finisher.
See, that part we need to fix. I need him to get his own finisher. However,
he's got to do the spinning Death Rider. I mean, like, that's an incredible move. Like, how is that not a finish?
That's true.
Meanwhile, I'm the resident Gene Blaster over here. So
that's fine. He's great.
That's the popular pick.
Yeah, I love to get Gene blasted. Is that a crime? Everyone takes a sip of coffee.
The way you say it, yeah, it is. Sorry for tuning out. There was actually big news that I wasn't expecting to read. Anyways.
Quickly.
This is gonna be late by the time I don't know. It depends how you feel.
It's not New Japan news. Relevant New Japan.
Well, it could be.
Sort of. It seems to be sort of relevant to New Japan.
She's not signing with WWE.
Oh, who? Julia or Mercedes?
Mercedes.
Oh,
What
Mercedes.
does Julia have to do with anything?
There was no earlier today that Julia's potentially signing.
Yeah, well, no, we were talking about Mercedes, and that's kind of big news. But
So Mercedes not signing WWE. Chris, immediate thoughts. Do you think she returns to Stardom?
She wrestled once in Stardom, so
But that Julia match, maybe that's how we get that Julia match back on the table.
I think the door. I wouldn't say the door is closed, but I don't think she's got more matches for the New Japan Stardom Bushiroad group.
Right.
That's just I don't know anything, but I think
it's a good hunch.
I think she's been gone long enough that now it's time for her to pop back up in the U.S.
Completely agree.
I think you're
right. Well, let's
get to the. You want to get to the card?
Yeah, let's get to the card. Of course, January 4th, 2024, Tokyo Dome. You know what it is. It's Wrestle Kingdom 18 in the Tokyo Dome. We'll go through the full card here, and we'll break down everything that's happening on January 4th. Not much to start with other than the Rambo returns with the Final Four meeting at the New Year Dash event the next day. Obviously, we don't know any of the participants in it. Chris, do you have any sort of non-participant named stats to give us on the Rambo?
No, I try not to cover the Rambo.
There you go.
So, but I would imagine Taichi will be in the Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a hunch because he's the incumbent, I guess, champion.
Yeah. The incumbent KOPW champion.
Yeah, but he's not the champion because I don't know.
Will Chase Owens be making a run through the Rambo again this year? Finally.
He only wins the handcuff Rambos.
My apologies, sir. You were fully correct. I forgot about the handcuff Rambo.
Oh, it was an era. I can't forget.
Burned into my retina. Well, then we'll start off properly with the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match up for grabs here. Of course, we have Drill Maloney and Clark Connors defending their titles for the fourth time here against Francisco Akira and TJPW. Of course, the Super Junior Tag League winners. Chris, of course, we'll start with you first as our guest. Talk to us about this match with Akira and TJP challenging Bullet Club War Dogs, Drilla Maloney, and Clark Connors.
Thrilled to see Clark Connors on the main card. Thrilled to see Drilla Maloney, in a primary spot here. This is classic New Japan Wrestle Kingdom, right? Like open with the junior tag match, go balls to the wall, and I just hope that those dudes walk into the back and say, like, we did what we were supposed to do. Like, we got the crowd, we got them paying attention, we got them invested. And, this is not going to be your 5-star match of the night, but it's definitely going to be your 5-star match of the, in the sense of hitting the mark for what they're supposed to do for this card. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's a really, really important role. I'm intrigued by the TJP and the coffin match and all that stuff. Like it's all a little too much for me, but why did we have to pivot the best thing that you can do to build a tag match, which is split the tag teams up and let them have singles matches? Why did you have to ruin that by doing a coffin match? I'm hopeful that there's something kind of fun. On TJP's been teasing this rebirth and something different. So
I think it's gonna come back as suicide.
You know what? I think that's someone else put that out there too somewhere, and I was like, oh yeah, that's probably it, because that totally seems like it's his lane. But and I think that there's some intrigue with what happens with United Empire, because
a lot,
especially with TJP sort of changing personality kind of thing, and Ospreay being on his way to AEW. What does that mean for that unit in New Japan specifically, right? Like, obviously they can all follow him to where he's going to go, but I don't think that's the plan. So, and I think it's been an important unit for New Japan. So kind of what's the path forward for them? I don't think we get much insight to that here in this match, but I think if I had to bet, I think the Bullet Club team is going to retain. Because I don't feel like the trajectory is there with Catch 22 right now.
I pretty much agree. Is that I feel like it's going to be the Bullet Club. I think in a weird way, I feel like Bullet Club War Dogs need a lot of oomph going into 2024, and I think one win here will help that. Scotty, what do you think? Do you think War Dogs can get the win here, or do you think what is it? Catch 22. Sorry,
Catch 22. Yeah,
is going to put it together.
I think Catch 2-2, just to give them respect for what a year they had. When you hear the tag team of the year conversations, I think they should be heavily considered by anyone going around. It's them and Bishamon, obviously, from New Japan, that deserve that respect. Everyone will go to the, FTR and stuff like that, but I think these two teams, especially Catch 2-2, who's a newer team, deserves that respect. And it's nice to see them head into the Tokyo Dome, coming off the big tag league win. With excitement, I just think, because of how good they are. Now, I don't know if this TJPW, geez, too much other wrestling. TJP, I don't know. Maybe that's his new character. I don't know what he is going to be. I know he's done a lot of new things. Maybe he just shaves his head and calls it a day there. But I'm excited because this is what is the perfect start to Wrestle Kingdom. This is why I didn't like the 2 days.
mm-hmm.
This is this is how we kick off. This is how we get into it. I think the War Dogs need the win far more. Just because you're trying to build momentum with them. You're trying to build momentum with them as a group. And you want them to start off hot, because I don't know how the rest of the night's going to go for the War Dogs, but I do know that Clark and Drilla, they're finding momentum together. I just keep going with that.
Yeah, I can fully agree with all that. Hey, maybe TJP's rebirth into Suicide is maybe it's coinciding with the rebirth of TNA as well. Maybe that's where this is all headed.
Hey, they have a good relationship.
They do. Yeah. One last thing. The last 4 times that the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles were defended in the Tokyo Dome, they were retained. Mm-hmm. So that speaks to, and it's one of the few titles that generally gets retained at the Tokyo Dome, because I've got some others that have a long list of unsuccessful defenses. So something worth noting.
The IWGP tags.
Oh
yeah. That one's right up here. I don't need to look that one up.
I was going to say, I remember that from last year's conversation.
Yep. And I just tick it up 1 notch every year.
Mm-hmm. Well, then we'll certainly see what happens here. I fully think War Dogs should get the win and move on to see where they go down the line. Let's talk about the New Japan World TV title up for grabs. Zack Sabre Jr., the first champion, of course, I would say, honestly, we talked about this before, Scotty and I talked about it in the upcoming episode of The Ballot on the Count Out Patreon, talking about Zack Sabre Jr.'s Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame case. I think Zack Sabre Jr.'s World TV title run has been the best championship title run for any company in years. I think it was the best championship run this year alone. I know a lot of people gave praise, like people like Orange Cassidy. For me, it was Zack Sabre Jr., the best champion of the year all year long, obviously having the title all year long. And now he's here facing not just the ace, but the president of the company, which who knows, maybe throws a wrench in the plans. Who knows? Chris, how do you feel about Zack Sabre Jr. versus Tanahashi for the World TV title?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zack needs to get his flowers, right? I mean, the man's had an incredible year, and just in New Japan, he's got 23 singles wins in 2023, and most of those were TV title defenses, and you have to go all the way back to 2010 to find someone who won that many singles matches, and that's just in New Japan. And then he took it outside. He defended the title a couple of times in Ring of Honor. He's had singles matches elsewhere. I mean, just an incredible year for Zack Sabre Jr. And on that, I think I would love to see him lose this match, because classic New Japan, I want him to lose up.
Yeah.
To any of the other titles, really, but probably either that global heavyweight championship or the big title. And I want him into those pictures. And I think that I think Tanahashi, regardless of what the quote unquote office said about what the TV title is all about, I actually think Tanahashi winning it, winning a title that they're committed to putting defenses into different cities in Japan, as Tanahashi mentioned in his press conference, and with shorter match lengths and a title that's intended to be for younger or newer wrestlers. You could give Tana a little run with this title, and eventually one of the younger guys takes it off of him, and then it's time to roll, right? In the objective, the original objective of the title. So obviously you can go straight to Zach doing the same, but I think now's the time maybe to, banana peel loss. Tanahashi and Zach, they've got a hell of a history. They've got 11 singles matches under their belts. They've got plenty of things to call back, but only 2 of those matches are less than 15 minutes. So that's something worth kind of being mindful of, is that like normally they're pacing the matches to go much longer. So I think we're going to get a different version of that match too. So I think that's compelling. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of directions you can go. But the TV title may end up being the ambassador title, because they post those matches on YouTube and, free Tanahashi matches. I mean, that sounds great that sounds like great, easy marketing, as are free Zach matches, but Tanahashi's a whole nother level.
How you talk about the time limits for these, obviously for the title and for these wrestlers. Do you have a stat available to you about how Tanahashi is at 15 minutes, or roughly that sort of time length?
Not off the top of, not something I've looked into yet, which is why I love that I do these before I have to send things off, because I'll put a note down to do that. But if Scott wants to talk for a second, I could see what I can pull together here.
Yeah, Scotty, what do you think about Sabre versus Tanahashi?
The way I look at this match isn't about who wins. It's about Zach going up, right? And Zach going up could happen now. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen whenever. Losing to Tanahashi is never a bad thing. And I think maybe that's the easiest way to have him move on from this reign. But there's also, the part where maybe you want to give the big win after just such a dominant reign to one of those younger guys that we have been talking about, right? Maybe, a Yota Tsuji or Yu Uemura, for example. Maybe they win their match and this is the title they go for. I'd obviously like to see them go for the bigger belts as well, but there's enough belts to go around right now for these wrestlers. So I think that's an intrigue to me. But I think Tanahashi winning and then dropping it to one of them is probably even better, just from the moment in time that happens in the scene where, you have maybe Yota Tsuji or Uemura standing tall over Tanahashi. I think that's just as important. But ultimately what I want out of this is for Zach to really get his shot now with those topper belts. He's obviously never held them. He's had the matches for him. He's won the New Japan Cup and all that, but he's ready. He's ready to hold one of those titles. I think the global title, the understanding that I have of that belt, it screams Zack Sabre Jr., right? Like the champion that goes and finds the fights himself. That's literally what he did with this belt. And I think he would do it so well with that one. So hopefully that is where he's off to if he does lose here.
So I've got a little one, I guess. I just kind of quickly ran the last 5 years, right? So in the last 5 years, Hiroshi Tanahashi's average singles winning match length is 17 minutes and 48 seconds.
All right.
Whereas Zach's is 14:13.
Which I imagine from this past year.
Yeah, I think that obviously got pulled down this year, but
Can you quickly run? Sorry, I'm asking.
Yeah, I can do. I can quickly run most things.
Can you do the last 5 years of Zack Sabre Jr. minus this past year?
I can do. Well, let's just look at 2022, just on its own here, and Zach 15:22 and Tanahashi 17:25 with the same number of matches.
Okay.
So great. Still similar, right? And I can keep going back year by year, but
so Tanahashi can do it. He just has to speed up a little bit more.
Oh, and I think that's like every year I'm looking at Zach sort of in that 15 range and for wins, and Tanahashi's in that 18 to 20 range. Zach's average loss time seems to fluctuate pretty heavily, whereas Tanahashi's average losses are very long. So it's really tough to beat Tanahashi in less than 15 when it really comes down to it in a singles match, which totally makes sense given the spots he's been in on the card. And, and Zach goes from, 13 to 18 to, 2021, everyone was spending their entire life in the ring. So it's almost an outlier in that way where it's hard to even put much stock behind it. But yeah, there's probably something I can find there, enough to work with.
That's very interesting. I wanted to go back and talk about that sort of losing up and that sort of idea. Less of a question, more of just, I was thinking about it as you were talking about it, Scotty, and about, Zack Sabre Jr. has quite the history of losing up against Tanahashi. Comes in his company, his first match is against Shibata, where he wins the Rev Pro title. And then his very first feud is basically with Tanahashi, where he constantly is losing to Tanahashi, and then beats him ultimately in the New Japan Cup. He has this sort of history of losing up, and then eventually ultimately beating Tanahashi down the line. But that first year run of him is mostly losing up to Tanahashi until he became this hot young star in New Japan. And that's very fascinating. And in the same breath, going back into the other end of the possibility of, would we have loved to see Zack Sabre Jr. lose it to a Tsuji or Shooter or anyone, Uemura? I wonder if this is me thinking out loud, if a losing up means as much if it was losing up to Tanahashi versus losing up to a Tsuji or a Shooter or a Uemura. The win matters more for those three guys, where the win in a weird way doesn't really matter as much for Tanahashi because of his status. So the focus is more on the winner and less of oh, okay, Zack Sabre Jr. lost, maybe he can now move up. This is just me thinking out loud, but I wonder if that's part of it, is that it makes more sense for Tanahashi to get the win here because Zack Sabre Jr. is more eligible, I guess, to losing up. I don't know.
Sure. I think there's a couple of candidates in singles heavyweight title matches for losing up. So, I think Zach's primed for a run at the top, though. I
agree.
At the top. Very potentially with the belt, right? So, and that's not to say someone like Shingo isn't. That's sort of who I was alluding to with the other option. Sure. But and maybe this isn't exactly the right time for Zach, but I think he's got to be the new kind of English speaking ambassador, right? Who's left? So, and he's been built to that level too. Yeah, he's an absolutely plausible person to put in that role. He's got his own unit now. I think Zach,
the best unit.
I'm so intrigued by Zach's 2024 in New Japan.
Yeah. Me too.
I've said on the show before, I thought 2023 was the best year of Zack Sabre Jr.'s career.
Oh, without a doubt.
And I still think that's saying something. We know how great he is, but the fact that he was able to, I think, make waves in so many different promotions, and in many ways, he did what I feel like we've become accustomed to with Ospreay over the past couple of years, with going here, there, and everywhere and having a notable match. I'm just hopeful that Zach does get that chance to shine because he is beyond ready to do so.
Completely agree. Let's move on to the next match on the card here. That special singles match between these two young guys, Yota Tsuji versus Yuya Uemura. Scotty, we'll start with you here first. What are your thoughts about the Gene Blaster versus, I don't know, I forget his...
Storm.
Storm. I was going to say Joe Hendry's best friend, but go ahead, Scotty.
That's not better. I think this is a chance for two guys who obviously know each other so well to put their names on the map for new viewers, right? With Wrestle Kingdom comes new eyes. With Wrestle Kingdom comes an opportunity to make a statement. And I think we're all waiting for Yuya Uemura to do that, right? He came back for Tag League. No offense to Tag League. He's not making a statement in Tag League. I just don't think. I don't think personally you have the freedom as much to make a statement in Tag League, especially when I think everyone sees him as a big-time future singles wrestler. This is his chance. He's going against a guy who obviously has a lot of fans behind him early on in his career. Yota Tsuji stormed onto the scene with the Sonata match, great G1, and then the Osprey match, and so on. These two have an insane history. I forget how many draws they had, but it's an incredible number, to say the least.
It was 21 in a row.
Yeah, which is awesome.
It's awesome. I mean, there's nothing better. That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
And now it's a chance, right? Uemura is the one that wanted this match. Tsuji wanted nothing to do with this. And that's the fun of it. Now he's going to have to show that he wants something to do with it because, again, this is his first big Wrestle Kingdom match. I love that they're facing each other because I think they're going to know that they need to, in many ways, make each other both look great. Who wins? That'll be interesting because I just think there's going to be a lot of momentum for whoever does win, and then a lot of questioning after that. I'm favoring Uemura. Actually, I feel like he should get a big win in his first big singles.
Yeah, well, that's the Okada parallel. Is Uemura getting this win at and I mean, if you recall, Uemura's send-off match was against Okada, and Okada gave him a nice drop kick out the door even after the match. So, and Uemura won the last time that these two met in 2021. The last time they had a singles match was on the road to Dontaku. Uemura was the winner. So I don't know what that informs, truthfully. But the Okada parallel is a win here, and that's not to say Tsuji's early era Yoshihashi.
I was about to say
that's definitely not it. To everyone's credit. And listen, Yoshihashi, he figured it out. Just took him a little longer, awesome. Right? Yeah. So like I said, I'm a Uemura guy, but like Tsuji's been so great that I honestly couldn't care less who wins. But
yeah, that's true.
I think if Tsuji wins, I'm watching him during the LIJ roll call.
Yes.
Oh no.
Fully agree.
If Uemura wins, I don't think they run back. I don't think they cleanly run back like the Rainmaker shock thing. Like, I don't think that's the play. If it is, I'm thrilled. Like, I'm into it. Incredible. But I just don't think that's the play. But
the Red Storm.
Strike. But either way, like, that's something. These guys have wrestled in singles matches, and God knows how many times in a dojo, right? Yeah. What's 25 plus 22? 47 times already.
Yep.
So 22 draws. Uemura's got 10 wins. Tsuji's got 15. Nothing in a spot, anything like this. So I'm thrilled that this match exists because it gave me such energy coming into these previews and talking about it and looking at all this stuff. So, yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait for whatever this match ends up being because I honestly think it's going to be great.
I fully agree. And we can't discount a draw here as well. You talked about that.
Oh, for sure.
That 22 draw record. That was at 47% or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Draw record for the two guys here. It's fully plausible.
Except what's the time limit?
It doesn't 30-minute time limit.
See, that's a long time. That's longer than a G1 draw. Now, that's too long.
You don't think giving these guys 30 minutes out there in the Tokyo Dome, third match on the card?
I would love it, but they've got one 15-minute draw on here, and that was in 2020 when they were doing the G1 kind of suit. All the young guys were wrestling each other in the G1 2020. So they have one. Yeah, I guess that was the C block that year, right? Now it would be the E block.
I was gonna say E for everyone else.
Yeah, and everything else is about, whatever, 10 minutes, 9 minutes. So like 30 minutes is long. I don't think they're doing that. That I wish they would have done a short time limit because then it would be in play.
Yeah, that's certainly plausible.
Or they could do just a wacky double count out and ruin everything.
You never know. You never know with these guys.
Technically a draw.
Yeah, I'm very interested, and I think there's not really much to like dive into preview because it's like Uemura just came back. Tsuji is still fairly new here. At this one, it's just, the love of the game, just the love of whatever's going to happen. We're all sort of excited and excited to see what's going to come of it. And what does that mean moving forward for who knows, maybe several years, like we talked about earlier. It's fascinating. It's one of those fascinating matches. So speaking about another fascinating match, special tag match here, 30-minute time limit. Kaito Kiyomiya and Shota Umino teaming up together to take on the Noah Invaders, I'll call them, Ren Narita and Evil of House of Torture. Shota looking, of course, for some revenge against Ren Narita, and Kiyomiya looking to not really defend his home turf, but I guess invade New Japan to then defend his home turf.
He's already defended his home turf before.
Okay, great. Then he's doing great. Then he has to push him back even more. You're acting like I pay attention to Noah all the time, Scotty.
You kind of do.
That is actually true. Chris, talk to me. Get me out of this hole. Talk to me about this match.
Yeah. I was really hopeful that this match was going to be Ren Narita versus Shota Umino, but yeah. I totally understand needing to get the House of Torture just as a unit on the show, which means you sort of have to include Evil and getting Kiyomiya on the show because he's a guy that they have access to. I have no idea what's happening with Kaito Kiyomiya.
Fun game to play, huh?
It's a game I've stopped playing. Because he's a Dragon Gate champion, right? Like
he is.
Which I watch. I love Dragon Gate. So Dragon Gate's my like watch wrestling for joy company. And I was like, why he won? Like why? Like why did he win?
He won in a different company? What is this?
Again? But I get it. Like he's a player, right? He's a guy in the kind of culture of Japanese pro wrestling. So I totally, and I think that the Umino Kiyomiya thing may pay off somewhere along the line, right? So there's a lot of story arcs to be had here. And Umino and Narita, I think that's your classic good versus evil, no pun intended, like good versus evil combo of this generation, right? Like the real bad guy now is Ren Narita because he totally jumped. And Shota Umino is your white meat babyface, and then you've got guys like Uemura and Tsuji that are kind of playing the middle, and can kind of lean one way or the other. So I think that it is fun that that's how they've organized these guys as they go into Wrestle Kingdom. But I my bet would be Evil pins someone to make the next match happen, like some sort of special singles match happen, whether it's Kiyomiya or Umino. Honestly, more fun for me if it's Umino.
Sure. And Kaito's right there to seemingly always take the pinfall. And
I guess.
Scotty, what do you think?
Situation. I'm very excited for this match. Actually, I know some people just read Evil and they roll their eyes and blah blah blah. I feel like we do this every time Chris is on here, but I'll do it again with the Evil stuff. But Shota and Ren Narita have so much excitement behind their rivalry, I think, and Ren has serious heat. If you watch those 2 year-end Korakuen shows, man, he was great in this heel role. And these two, it's all about them. It's all about Shota getting his hands on Ren, essentially. And I think he's going to be way too focused on that it's going to end with everything is evil because everything is always evil. Kiyomiya, I'm just happy he's on the card. He's been a big part of New Japan over the past year with the, kicking Okada in the side of the head and pissing him off to no end to create one of the best rivalries of the year. And then, of course, the stuff with Oiwa, they're a great tag team considering that it's just kind of happened, which, very Noah-like. Things just kind of happen. It's crazy to have your young ace just going everywhere besides your company, but I digress. But I'm excited to see what this match ultimately ends up being. And I think with how hungry Shota and Ren are, and Kaito to an extent, he always seems hungry. He just, doesn't have a direction that makes sense at the moment for me. I think it can over deliver. And I think you're right, Chris. I think Evil probably gets the win here, probably pins Shooter. That's been part of the story. That's how we got here, right? Shooter keeps getting pinned. So I think that's how we do it. Maybe fights Evil, and then he finally gets that match with Narita that we all desperately want.
Well, and that's part of the story here too. Narita's never beaten Umino in singles. They have wrestled a bunch of times, obviously. I mean, not nearly as much as Uemura and Tsuji, but they've got 3 draws, and then everything else, Umina's the winner. So
right,
there's something there with Narita also finally getting the win because he turned evil. He turned with House of Torture, etc. So I think that's a story that someone will end up telling as the course of this kind of feud goes on.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be interesting. I think Evil is also a fantastic tag team wrestler, obviously having a long time tag team history with the likes of current IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Sonata. So, can he pull it together with a new guy in Ren Narita? I think that's going to be an interesting one. And yeah, I think in terms of like a booking idea, it's the sort of idea of like, if the team of Kaito and Shooter are going to pick up the win, who the heck eats that fall? The guy you just turned or the leader of the faction that was a former world champion? So it's a little bit of a fun little booking question for ourselves, but I think it could be can lead to a fun, more interesting match in that sort of way. Moving on to the next match, it is 60-minute time limit for that never open weight title. Shingo Takagi defending his title against Tama Tonga. Chris, talk to us about this match. Great. Perfect. Are you jazzed about it?
I mean, I'm always jazzed to see a Shingo Takagi singles match in a big building.
And what a Tama Tonga singles match in a big building.
Tama Tonga is a really capable, good wrestler.
Very political answer, but
I mean, he is. That's pretty objective.
No, I get what you're saying. I agree.
I just don't get it. Like, how did we get here? That's like I've done like columns that I title like, how did we get here? The story of Kazuchika Okada and Hiroshi Tanahashi. If I was like, how did we get here? The story of Shingo Takagi versus Tama Tonga, it would just be an article that says IDK. Like, I just don't know how we got here. And it doesn't make any damn sense. But I hope it makes sense by the end of the match or maybe by the end of the show. There's really kind of 2 matches on this card that were potentially affected by this match existing. And it's obviously this match and then the tag match, because I had kind of flagged Shingo and Tsuji as the World Tag League winners.
Yeah.
So why? But I'm just hopeful that there's something, right? Something happens, something appears, something goes down that gives me that like, oh, and like, honestly, like New Japan almost always pays that off. So I'm trying not to bury this any deeper than I buried the Carl Anderson never open weight championship match last year. But I'm very curious about this match. And if nothing comes out of it, I'm gonna be the John Travolta meme. That's like, what is happening with the Never Championship?
Well, maybe the thing that comes out of it is Carl Anderson returning a year after his last New Japan.
Honestly, I'm here for it.
First All Japan, now New Japan. Okay?
Bright lights, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Scotty knows this on the podcast. I have an interesting relationship about Tama Tonga, where sometimes
there's nothing interesting. You just don't like him.
Sometimes I don't like him. Sometimes when weirdly he's facing.
That's true. Him and Evil, you love. That's actually true.
I really love the combination of him and Evil, and that's like 2 negatives turning into a positive. Really,
I love that Tama Tonga walked into the back room of the Madison Square Garden show and like yeeted the ROH tag title and said no one gives a fuck about no ROH. Like, I think that's the funniest thing anyone's ever done in pro wrestling. Like, I love that so much, and I so badly want someone to do that in like AEW with the ROH tag title situation right now. Like to just like walk up to it, like FTR, right? Like they walk up to it and they take the ROH tag title and they say, "You've ruined this," and no one gives a fuck about no ROH and just yeet it against the wall again. That's the best thing Tama Tonga has ever done. I mean, among starting Bullet Club and things like that. But God, man, that was such a moment for me. Because I was like, yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, he's totally right in that moment. That's what's great about it. Oh God, what was that? Because that was because of Enzo, right? Enzo and Big Cass kind of still unsure.
I guess either that or it was just him being like, yeah, I guess I'm the champ here.
That's true. Well, guess what? Isn't that what Ishii said about when he was the TV champion? He was just like, I don't know what this is about the title thing.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Scotty, we immediately stopped talking about the match, but do you have any thoughts about Tama Tonga versus Shingo Takagi here? Is Tama going to win it back from Shingo?
I just want the never open weight title to return to its former glory. That's all I want. That's all I need. And like I don't know what needs to happen to get there, but I miss, the big beefy guys just running into each other and having incredible matches. I miss the Shibata Ishii matches and Goto and all those things. And I feel like Shingo's the guy to bring that back, right? That's Shingo all up and down. And
you would think.
Yeah. And I want Shingo higher up the card. I always want Shingo higher up the card. Right. But if this is his role right now, this is better than being in the Rambo. I'll tell you that right now.
That's true.
Right? Like that's where he was last year. I would love to see him take this title and keep bringing it back to where it was. This is a shot at Carl Anderson. He ruined it for good. That jerk. Also,
it was sort of in this floundering spot.
Jay White was also in America with it, but
it's had a rough run here. The never openweight championship. And you know what? It's probably gonna get worse.
Oh, good. Oh, nice. That's terrible.
So
that's not good. How can it get worse?
The never openweight championship has been defended in the Tokyo Dome 9 times, and it has changed hands 7 times.
Oh,
so that is but one of the 2 people to ever retain it was Shingo Takagi. So again, creating that doubt. It's around.
The last time Shingo defended, he then went on to have that incredible match with Hiroshi Tanahashi after.
True.
So
that ruled.
Yeah. So if that's the shining light that I can look forward, it doesn't have to be Tanahashi, but if it can be someone like that,
maybe we could just get a tour of Tanahashi challenging for all the titles as the president.
Ooh,
he did say he wants the world title.
That's a good idea. I'm gonna send that one in.
Send it to the president. You might know a guy.
I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna put that on Twitter so Hiroki Goto sees it and sends it to someone who can speak Japanese.
I think that's a big suggestion box outside his office, and then Goto just tweet into it.
Yeah, he actually prints the tweet and just puts it in there.
So nice of Goto to do that for you.
He might.
Well, let's quickly move on and talk about the IWGP Tag Team and Strong Openweight Tag Team title match here with the.
You know what this is? A rematch, just like the last match.
Just like a lot of the matches?
I was going to say, just like most of the card, if I'm not mistaken. But that's besides the point.
Well,
what we're talking about now
is different for me.
That's fair. Is the Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto, the IWGP Tag Team Champions here, defending their titles and possibly requiring new titles against these strong Openweight Tag Team Champions, El Phantasmo and Hikuleo. Scotty, let's talk to you first about this match. How do you feel about going into this sort of this tag team warfare, all titles on the line? What do you think about this match?
I have big questions regarding the strong belts moving forward, and this certainly adds more to that. I'm not sure what's happening to the strong open weight. Okay, this Triple Crown thing has confused the hell out of me. I don't know what that means. I don't know if Eddie Kingston or John Moxley are holding all 3 of them. This was recorded before that show, so I'm just letting everyone know.
Oh yeah, that's like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What am I doing with my life?
I don't know if that titles just disappearing into the Triple Crown. I don't get it.
I don't think that's what's happening. I don't want to go too far into that, but I think it's more like a J Crown sitch where like
that's my assumption.
Yeah. Also, Eddie Kingston's probably winning. I'm gonna sound like a dope if he doesn't now, though. Which is why they didn't really need to explain away any of that stuff, is because like he's just, and they were calling it the Continental Crown on Dynamite. They weren't calling it the Triple Crown anymore. They rebranded.
They gave it official name.
Yeah, and it's in my opinion, it should be a crown. Like kind of like it might maybe
for the king, Eddie Kingston.
Maybe it looks a lot like the New Japan Cup, trophy, but just as a crown. I'd be way into that, way more than this confusing situation.
Yeah. But back to the tag match, I'm very confused. So like, is this title, are these titles just going to combine long term? I don't know.
It's for both. It's for both titles separately, which is not the first time that we've done this with these particular titles.
Yeah, which I thought they were going to combine back then as well. And now we're doing it again. But this is going to be a continuation of that 40-minute slugfest from World Tag League Final, right? That's all it is. And they're not going to go 40 minutes this time. There's no way. There's no way that's happening. And I'm going to be interested to see how it changes up. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw new champions. It's kind of part of the theme with these belts, right, Chris?
Oh, yes. Yes, you knew that. 11 in a row. 11 times the IWGP tag team titles have been defended at Wrestle Kingdom, and 11 straight times have changed hands. And what is that? 12 out of 13. So, but Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi have won the last 2 times.
All right.
So like, so, and those are the only 2 times that they've challenged for the titles at the Dome. So if anyone's going to break the streak, it's going to be someone extending a different streak. So maybe they win. And I mean, I could go for a run with ELP and Hikuleo as the tag champs too, but I honestly think, Goto and Yoshihashi are so good that it's hard for me to take the top belts off of them without really something with a little bit more meat on the bones than ELP and Hikuleo right now. As much as I love, honestly, both those dudes in the role that they're in.
Yeah.
So I am intrigued by that, at least.
They've made the most out of the oddball pairing that they were at the first. Right now they work like a team, but I remember when they first became like a duo, I was like, this is weird. But they've done a great job. Maybe Bishamon wins, and you have the War Dogs waiting in the wings. Obviously, they got so close. You have TMDK, the Dream Team, right? Get the Tanahashi tag title match next. I know we're pitching all these Tanahashi matches. And I love that match from last year. So I think there's a lot of possibilities with Bishamon.
Not to add more fuel to the Bishamon fire, but there's also that report via, I believe it was WrestleLand, with El Phantasmo talking about his potential contract status within New Japan, potentially coming up. And I believe he then talked about Fightful, about how it may be coming up, hinting at the idea of it coming up at the end of January. So not to add more fuel to the Bishamon fire, the titles and everything. But there's contract discussions as well here. If they are going to win the titles, then all right, we're putting on titles or onto people that may or may not be here for much longer. If we're going to put the titles on Bishamon, then maybe that's saying something about El Phantasmo and his future in this company. I think that's a weird other dynamic of this whole match. I don't know what it'll be. I guess we'll find out what that will be or what that could mean. It's also El Phantasmo, so who knows with what he's saying online and what he's saying to reporters. But I think it's just another sort of wrench in this whole match, and seeing if we're getting unifications of titles, contract talks, records upon records of history playing into it. It's gonna be, I don't know, historic in some way, I guess.
Well, let me just kind of throw something else out there.
Please, let's add it to the pile.
Everyone's contract's up at the end of January.
I know.
That's how Japanese pro wrestling works. Like they're all up soon, at least. So who knows? Maybe Yoshihashi's making the jump.
Yoshihashi, the WWE confirmed?
Yeah, right. Aggregate this, baby.
Aggregate this, baby. Come at us.
No, I mean, you never hear about it with the Japanese guys because they're typically just loyal and they want to live in Japan, right? But
yeah,
everyone gets a new deal almost every year in Japan. Most guys are on 1-year deals, and it is sort of this guaranteed rolling contract, but you do have to negotiate that. So
and a bunch of people work there without a contract.
Absolutely. You work there on a per date, or you work there because you trust that you're going to work it out, or you work there on a handshake. So, that's not to say that it's not fair game for guys like Hikuleo or El Phantasmo to go out and talk about the contract status, but it's common that's when they're up. But, someone like El Phantasmo has different options too. So I don't think he's lying by any means, but I do think, omitting that most people have a contract that comes up and kind of have a standing offer oftentimes. At least that's my understanding. I've never negotiated a contract with New Japan. So, I would if someone wants to call.
I bring it up because El Phantasmo has obviously brought it up.
Yeah.
So
yes,
it's relevant to this case. Scotty,
absolutely.
I would like to just kind of throw this curveball at Chris, maybe. Is there anyone on the scene in wrestling, with a lot of, a couple guys leaving New Japan, potentially, we're talking about all these contracts coming up. We know Ospreay's leaving. Is there anyone out there that just like you would like to see jump into the New Japan waters in this new year? Because there should be new people. We saw Callum Newman, right? And Callum Newman is starting to really find his way. You see that Ishii match, folks? Like, he's getting there quickly. So
I'd like to see more Mike Bailey in New Japan.
Yeah.
And maybe not even just as a junior, right? I mean, I think you could sell him as a heavy. So like he's sort of the guy on my radar right now that I think would be the coolest to really commit, right?
Yeah.
And spend a lot of time there and really, do some real work to get himself, up that level. I think a guy like Alex Zane is up there too. Really kind of an interesting, he's got the fan base over there already. I know he's doing all this work with Lance Archer, mostly when he's over in Japan, but I think he's got a run in him as a heavyweight singles. He had a good Best of Super Juniors a couple of years ago. And then, guys like Blake Christian and guys that just don't necessarily have a home. I always like to remind people that like New Japan's not a developmental for American major pro wrestling, but it is a great place for someone who wants to treat it that way. And that's, if you're going to be there for a couple of years and be able to put together some true story arcs and really get the fan base behind you, I think anyone's going to be into that. And I think that is also just sort of the nature of New Japan. Guys don't stay, English speaking, whatever, Westerners, however you want to call them. They don't stick around forever. You're blessed to get 6-8 years from a guy like Kenny Omega or a guy like Will Ospreay. And, there's no way those guys are the wrestlers that they are today if they didn't spend all that time in New Japan. And I think, who's behind that then? Is it Mike Bailey? Like some of these guys want to work that many matches and have that time and not be cut by commercial breaks and not have to do a dive to the outside because you need to go to picture in picture, right? Like some of these guys want to do the pro wrestling thing for now. And then you go and you do the TV wrestling thing. And then you get to have some great pay-per-view matches if you sign with AEW, and you get to make a big paycheck if you sign with WWE. Like, I think, but yeah, those are kind of the guys, and that's kind of my little soapbox about like guys leave sometimes, and it doesn't mean the end of New Japan. Like it never has, and it probably never will.
Right. Absolutely.
If you can get a guy for 6 to 8 years, you take those blessings.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're better off depending on them for like 3, and then just hoping you get a little bit more. Even a guy like Callum Newman, like if you've got him for the next 3 years, you're going to see his entire rise, and that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we Scotty knows this for the closest probably out of anybody, but like we saw that just then with just this past year of Mariah May and coming in, wrestling 99 matches, and then signing a nice little contract with AEW. Not only getting a better wrestler,
Well, she did an interview. What she was
wrestling.
talking to Jericho, right? And she was like, I'm a TV character. I was
Yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, that's you know,
she's absolutely right. She's
like
absolutely right.
well played, I guess. As long as, and that's, you know, Jericho was so impressed that she said that, and I was like, man, I saw that from a mile away. That's brilliant.
Yeah, she understands what she needs to do to like elevate herself, and you know, obviously, you know, people in Western wrestlers can do the same in New Japan, like you sort of talked about, Chris.
Yeah.
How you can go to New Japan and elevate not just your wrestling ability, but also your stock on a sort of worldwide level, which is always fascinating to see. Let's talk about the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match between Hiromu Takahashi and El Desperado. Obviously,
can't wait.
Long-standing rivalry between these two. I'm fascinated, Chris. How much can you talk about sort of their rivalry in a statistical terms?
I mean, I had to kind of trim it down a little bit when I was pulling together because it goes so far back, and there's so many matches with before El Desperado was El Desperado, before Hiromu came back from. So what I'm looking at is really since Hiromu came back from Excursion and since El Desperado became El Desperado, and in that time frame, that's really since 2018, they're 4-4-1 against each other. So they've had, and that includes 3- and 4-way matches too. So it's like any kind of singles match. So they're essentially even, and that actually sort of surprised me when I saw it on paper or, you know, digitally. Like I was like, oh, I feel like Hiromu has dominated this entire, this entire run against each other, but El Desperado has had a pretty good run here. So, this match, I think the story is that Hiromu has beaten the other two wrestlers from last year's 4-way, and he has yet to beat El Desperado since then. Yeah. So that's the story that I think they haven't told. I mean, I think it's probably out there. There's no way around it. This match is gonna rule. But it's the match that I keep forgetting about because I can't pinpoint the moment where I realized it was happening, except like it was a post-match promo thing. Like it didn't have any like build to it. But that's not to say I'm opposed, because I love when these two mix it up. I wish they would have gotten there in a way that was, I guess, a little more traditional.
Yeah.
He's been out too, right? Didn't Desperado get surgery of some sort?
I remember, but
I thought for sure he got surgery.
It might have been during a tour or something that it became unnoticeable or something. I completely agree with you. Is that like this match?
Eye surgery in November. Sorry, good thing.
Oh, well, that's recent.
That could play a factor. Who knows? We might see that play a factor in some way. It's a match that, like, despite like a very historic rivalry and despite very historic moments in wrestling, it feels weirdly cold, and it's hard to sort of pinpoint exactly where it is. Maybe it is like the storyline that is happening is not completely out there or obvious or what it is. I think you bring up the fatal 4-way is probably what the story is or what it should be, but it's not. It doesn't seem like it's completely relevant or obvious to I don't know, me, I guess. Maybe it's, Despy and Hiromu's year. I think Hiromu had for me personally, he had an okay first half of the year. Obviously, more people enjoyed it than me, and then the second half it felt quieter. And Despy also felt like he had a very quiet year in 2023. Scotty, what do you think? What do you have any sort of reasons about why this match just sort of feels cold, despite how heated this rivalry has been?
It hasn't. Hiromu hasn't. I feel like he hasn't had much focus the past couple months in New Japan. Not, because he's doing everything else, right? He's went to Michinoku Pro, DDT, like he is doing all these different things. And I feel like in an odd way, New Japan has kind of been like the other thing he's doing, despite being a champion. And it doesn't help that I think you both are right. Like there wasn't a way to heat this up. It's not like they were wrestling on a tour or it was just a post-match segment where they're just like, yeah, let's go. And I remember before that happened, I was expecting a multi-man match again for the belt. It just felt natural. But I'm happy even so that they're going for the singles belt. The way I look at this match is Desperado, I think he's the best junior in the world. I do. I think his work over the past year has been about building to this moment. He got to do all the things he wanted to do, right? He got to wrestle with Jun Kasai and team with him and face John Moxley in a crazy death match. And he got to go twice. That's right. That's right. And do all these different things. But now it feels like it's his time to be champion again. I think it's been his time to be champion again. You know, Hiromu had this year-long reign. He really wanted that Tokyo Sports MVP. Sad for him that he didn't get it. I was rooting for him. But I feel like this is all about Desperado getting to be back on top. Now, if Hiromu wins, there's always the opportunity of, you know, maybe Master Wato coming back around, because obviously he had that great showing at Dominion. I think some have argued since then that maybe he should have won even, just because of how hot he got through that tournament. There's also the potential of like a Teton challenge I would love to see, or things like that, just because I think Inner LIJ would be pretty cool. But I think Desperado should get the belt, and then kind of set up Best of Super Juniors, create a little doubt, right? Obviously, people will instantly think Hiromu is going to win that then. But I think the junior division, you know, Ryan, we said this last year. Last year's not tag league, jeez, Best of Super Juniors was to build to this year's.
Yeah.
Right. So many more people are now proven. So many more people are now established that I think this is going to be an even better Best of Super Juniors that I'm very much looking forward to. And I think whether it's Desperado or Hiromu as champion, it's going to be great. But I'm hoping it's Desperado's time.
Desperado is the last person to retain a title at the Tokyo Dome, the junior title, and that was against Hiromu. So.
What year was that?
That was 22. I mean, that was 2 years ago. Sure. So, which was a good match and just a part of their story, though. It wasn't the highlight match. That was the Super Junior final in, what was that, 2020? Yeah, I mean, the problem with Desperado winning is that you gotta get the Hiromu Naito anniversary match in.
Oh yeah,
like you got to, right? Like it's got to happen. And I honestly, it wouldn't. They don't always do junior champ versus heavy champ. Like last year, it was Bishamon versus Tanahashi and Okada Dream Team. Yeah, which was great. So I guess maybe you just say, well, we're still doing Hiromu, but that's my only pause for saying, yeah, this should be Desperado's crown. And honestly, like that doesn't really take me out of still believing that that's probably the right decision to make for this title. But I think if you're, and anniversary is not till March 6th. So somehow you get some sort of rematch. I don't know. But that's the thing that's keeping me from really digging my heels in and saying, no, Desperado needs to win this.
That's probably fair. And maybe, well, is the anniversary match, was it formally announced as having New Japan Cup matches as well? I saw you tweeting about that.
It has not, but they never do. But this year, New Japan Cup is actually starting like after the anniversary match or anniversary card. And usually it's like you've got the scheduling's been so bad the past couple of years. So it's almost like someone who knows nothing about wrestling was booking the rooms. So this year, at least, New Japan Cup starts truly, like the New Japan Cup tour actually starts after anniversary, but I'd be kind of surprised if they didn't put some cup matches on the anniversary show, because it is like the day before. It's not like the day before, it is the day before.
So if they kick off the New Japan Cup that day, then
yeah, my bet would be you'd see 3 or 4 first round matches on that show, and then some sort of special tag match and a main event. That's probably the heavy versus junior thing.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, if you have the New Japan Cup, that will sort of help probably sell some tickets. But if you don't have it, then hey, let's do a world title match, sort of, or not world title match, but a world title versus IWGP Junior title. Main event slot.
Well, that's the classic thing. That's the most common thing they do on the anniversary show. So I love a tradition. So I would love for that to get back to that. It's kind of okay with me if that's El Desperado. It's not okay with a lot of LIJ fans, right? So, part of me feels like this whole Naito run is going to be, going back and doing what they wanted to do in 2020.
Yeah.
And that's, honestly, I'm okay with that too, because you love to see a story get finished. I've heard at least.
Rumors have it.
People like when the story reaches its end.
Well, let's talk about the IWGP, the new IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship, not to be confused with a GHC title.
The lot of matches on this show. Oh my god!
Yeah, we're on third to last. Strap in, folks. IWGP GHC title.
Wrestle Kingdom. Of course, there's a lot of matches. All the matches are on Wrestle Kingdom.
It's not like
I'm happy it's this way.
It's not like we're reviewing that Taka Michinoku proto show.
The 58 match show. When I saw, this is a side tangent. I saw the brackets for that tournament that he booked, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I was like, it's in one day. It took me a second. I was like, wait, what?
Those are the stats I need from you.
Why?
I'll cover Michinoku Pro, sure.
I hate to see how long that video file is. All right, let's talk about the IWGP Global Heavyweight title being inaugurally crowned by that's not a phrase. In this three-way, Will Ospreay versus Jon Moxley versus the leader of Bullet Club War Dogs, whatever sort of weird faction dynamics are happening now. Leader of the Bullet Club, David Finlay. We've sort of mentioned this before on the show. My thoughts about this sort of weird dynamic. Obviously, you have Ospreay on his way out, Moxley coming in as AEW, maybe also coming in as the now minted Continental, not Continental Crown champion person. And then you have nice old David Finlay, leader of the War Dogs, in there as well. It's an interesting dynamic, and one that I don't know. Whoever wins this is going to be interesting to see how it moves forward. Scotty, we'll start with you. Actually, no, we'll start with Chris. Scotty, we've already kind of talked about it previously. Chris, what do you think about this three-way for the new global heavyweight title?
I'm so curious about it. Like, how did we get here again? Like, that's again a question I have. Why is Jon Moxley here?
Yeah.
I mean, I love totally one of my favorite wrestlers. Like, what a guy, right? But like, why? And as I was talking to someone else earlier today, I kind of had this aha moment where I was like, maybe Moxley's there to play some sort of role in the Danielson Okada match, and they were like, well, we're gonna have him. We should put him in a match.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of undercard tags or anything happening. So, I mean, this is a all business card.
Yeah.
So that's the question I have more about, because I think the match that they probably I think the match that I anticipated was David Finlay versus Will Ospreay, if it wasn't going to be Umino. Because Finlay is the last box to check on Ospreay's goodbye tour to give him like one great match on the way out. And
we have a lot of good, solid, small little history of some great.
Yeah, exactly. And they, I think to my knowledge and from what I can tell behind the scenes, they're pals, right? So and Ospreay's done that for all the people on his way out, starting with really, I guess, kind of the spring of last year with Taichi and, some of these other guys. Like he's taken a lot of great moments to give some people their kind of match of their life. And Finlay's the only one that kind of didn't get that box checked. So that was sort of, he's the last guy that I recognize that, is pals with Will, that, or at least my perception is, I don't know that. No one's ever told me that, but, that he's the last guy to get that kind of rub. And so that's why I was intrigued by Jon Moxley getting kind of wedged into this match. So now Moxley is an enhancement to any pro wrestling match you put him in. So I'm not complaining about it. And I don't really take any issue with this being a 3-way either, because, you know, it's the only one on the card that's kind of this multi-person or extra person match. So no issue with that. But the chalk pick is to say, well, David Finlay's the company guy, so he's going to win.
Quite literally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But we know we've got at least one more date of Ospreay, and that's with Okada.
Yeah.
And he's already challenging Okada for Battle in the Valley. And if they want to make this title something really special, I think you throw the belt to Ospreay and you have him defend against Okada. And then it's a toss up. Does Okada win a belt that's not the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, or do you double swerve and Will wins again? Or does Jon Moxley just win this thing and they put it on ice for a little while? Or, they probably already know if they had some more dates. I think Jon wants to work New Japan more.
Yeah.
But the rigors of working for AEW, it's really challenging to create that space.
Yeah. I'm trying to, if I recall correctly, this match was created prior to Will Ospreay signing a contract with AEW.
Prior to the announcement of his signing a contract. I have no idea when that actually happened.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. But I believe at the very least, the match announcement was post Ospreay looking, or at least that announcement of looking. I'm trying to remember the timeline of it all.
Yeah, I don't recall. The time all that happened sort of in the same time frame.
Yeah. If I recall, I bring that up only because maybe that's part of this triple threatness, is that sort of, maybe it's a relic of, well, we don't have this guy, so maybe we put someone in here that, we don't want to upset him, or, we don't want him to lose on his way out, or I don't know. Who knows?
I'm certain there's some sort of politic happening.
Of course.
I don't know. I wouldn't
what it is.
I mean, like with this group of guys, also like Moxley loves work in Japan and he's there as frequently as he can be. Finlay works there, and I don't think Ospreay's going to burn a bridge. He's been really clear that he has enjoyed his time in New Japan, and he gives them a lot of credit for his growth. So yeah, any one of these guys could make a case for the favorite.
Yeah. Scotty, what do you think? We obviously talked about it before. What do you think about this match now that we're closer to it?
I think there's a lot of intrigue of creating this new title's prestige via Ospreay to Okada. I think there's a lot of interest for me in that, because remember when I just remember when it was announced as the global title, and people were like, isn't that world? And maybe that confuses Okada enough to actually want it. You never know. But in all seriousness, I do think that there is no certain winner in this match. Like, I know some people going, oh, David Finlay's gonna win, he's the company guy. I just don't see that being a lock. Now, would it make sense to have David Finlay win it since he's the guy that's in the company moving forward? Yeah, it sure would. But Will Ospreay's around a little bit longer. We know he's going to be around for the New Beginning shows as well. So maybe we can make it that far with him as global champion. And then like Chris said, Jon Moxley is the wild card of all wild cards. If he had the choice, he'd be at every New Japan major show, I'm pretty sure. Honestly, because that's just what he loves to do. He loves to wrestle. But when you are the ace of the world for AEW, you have to wrestle on every show that they have. So it's tough. But if my gut is saying Will Ospreay wins, I don't know. I just think that Battle in the Valley match doesn't need the title. No. But if you want to put the emphasis on what this title is all about, right? It's the title that travels around the world and brings the fight to other places. That's as good as it gets. Doesn't get better than Ospreay and Okada at Battle in the Valley for the IWGP Global title. My one thing about this belt, I just want it to look good. I just want it to look good.
Well, I wonder what color it's going to be. I think
that's the real question, right? Do they go white? do they really hat tip back and go white strap?
Yeah, because we got orange, we got red, we got blue. White is
purple.
available. Purple
Out there. The strong women's title.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
purple.
Sort of purple.
That's a New Japan
It's weird,
title.
it's kind of a weird purple.
Yeah.
I would like it to go back to the white strap.
It could. I mean, they could just do red again.
They could do green and really lean into the global heavyweight championship of it all.
Green would also look red to me as the colorblind man. So,
interesting.
Let's do
Chris
it.
wins either way.
I think the thing that would put it into that, I mean, just immediately, once you see the belt, the thing that would put it kind of into that space is if they go white. They go with the white strap. Because that immediately people will tie it back to the Nakamura Intercontinental reign, and maybe Okada wants the Okada global reign.
Yeah.
And it's an easy way to get to it. Counterpoint though, you could just book Jon Moxley for Battle in the Valley. Like that's not a tough trip for him to make.
Is he on that show?
Not to my knowledge, but I don't keep up until they start announcing matches, truthfully.
That's fair.
So this one's probably the most up in the air to me.
Yeah, I've always been in the sort of David Finlay boat. I am unsure about the Moxley of it all, and obviously if Moxley wins the triple American Triple Crown title at World's End, obviously we're recording and publishing this. We're publishing it after World's End, recording this prior to World's End. If he wins that, I fully don't believe he's winning this title. That would just be more confusing on top of everything. If Ospreay leaving, I love the idea of Ospreay winning the title and maybe like either retaining it or defending it and losing it or whatever to Okada at Battle in the Valley. But I'm just unsure to me that sounds like a dream situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm unsure if that is what's going to happen. And
time to dream, baby.
And I think if Okada Shorts, our New Japan podcast in the Count Out Podcast Network umbrella, they had a great podcast episode at one point, and we clipped it as well, where they talked about how what New Japan really needs is like a great villain and like a really well-established villain. And it doesn't quite feel like there is one. And they, at the time, I think maybe even before this triple threat was announced, they proposed the idea of like, we really need to find a way to really establish David Finlay as the big bad villain of New Japan. Since he came in and since all of his matches and everything, it hasn't quite nailed it. Maybe this is the spot. Maybe it is Ospreay finally sort of checking that box and putting him over in a great match. Maybe it's him getting crowned as the inaugural global heavyweight champion for New Japan. I've always been in the boat of he needs something more than Jay White's wardrobe. He needs something, he needs something new than a new look and black beard dye. He needs something new. And I think a great match with two fantastic wrestlers and an inaugural champion holder, crown holder, whatever, is the thing that could helpfully get him there. And that's kind of where I'm at. If I would love to see David Finlay get somewhere. And I think he just needs that next gear, and hopefully winning this match, in my opinion, can help him get in there. But who even knows if he's going to win it? I would love Ospreay too, but who even knows if he's going to win it here? Let's move on to that next match. Of course, it's going to be another special singles match between Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson. Of course, they're repeating their match from Forbidden Door earlier this year, where during said match, Bryan Danielson broke his forearm. I forget which arm it was, but forearm in the match. He's wrestled the entire Continental Classic with a quote-unquote hurt injured retina, I believe it was.
Broken orbital bone.
I was close enough. Broken orbital bone. And now he's going into this match, a damaged man looking for revenge, looking to break the arm of Okada. So he's unable to use the Rainmaker. Chris, how do you feel about? I know you have strong opinions. How do you feel about this match between the American Dragon and the Rainmaker?
I just know that it's going to be better than the Forbidden Door match because I was so dejected by that match. Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep in that. I already sort of said my piece at the beginning of the show a little bit.
Sure.
Pretty much the first thing I said. But
the floor is yours.
But
rants are allowed on this podcast.
Yeah. These guys are two of the best in the world, though. I mean, I can't take that away from them, and I know that they had a rough go. They couldn't do what they wanted to do with the match of Forbidden Door. Like I'm wholeheartedly aware of that. That doesn't change that match bummed me out. Like that's what it comes down to. Like great wrestling is energizing, and when you expect to get great wrestling and you've already gotten a ton of great wrestling on that Forbidden Door card, and then it doesn't stick the finish, it's so deflating. And I don't know what that says about me and my emotions, but damn it, they're real. They're mine. They're all I've got. So, I hope that they, and I know I have great confidence that they know that, right? Yeah. I also there's a part of me that doesn't think this match was on the table until that arm broke. Okada was messing around with the young guys. Okada was being grumpy old man Okada. And then this match happened. And then the G1, and they haven't gone back to Okada with the kids, So it's almost like they were like, damn it, now we got to do it at the Dome, because where else, right? There's no other place to do it if you're doing it in Japan. There's no other place to do it. So I don't know. I mean, that's my headcanon, at least, is that they weren't going to go back to this quickly, but they have both these guys have so much pride that they needed it. So they were like, we're just going to do that. And I'm glad they are. And I think last year at Wrestle Kingdom, Ospreay and Omega, it carried a lot of weight. It held a lot of the, Western fan base attention, and it's what got a lot of attention on it. And, this match being a rematch, it's not going to quite do the same, I don't think. And I don't sense the buzz is quite as high, but Danielson cut a hell of a promo in his interview series video. And Okada is Okada. I mean, these guys are going to go out there, and Okada in the Tokyo Dome, has he failed? I mean, I don't think so. Even last year against Jay White following,
Brian loves that match.
I love that match too. I know that objectively the Ospreay and Omega match was better, and it drained me as I was watching it. But when and honestly, it drained me emotionally, and it gave me that feeling, right?
Yeah.
And
restore the feeling. Hashtag.
And then, in the chats and discords or wherever I was paying attention to that show, everyone was just talking about the Ospreay Omega match throughout the entire Jay White Okada match. So the next day I went back and watched the Jay White Okada match in a vacuum, and I was like, this fucking rules. And it, but I'm a Jay White main event guy. I love Jay White main events. The long match against Ibushi in the Dome is one of my favorite matches. Love it. So
Chris, you named I think it was last year, the Jay White. Was it last year? 2 years ago?
Yeah.
That was my match
in New Japan a long time.
The one with Ibushi?
Yes, that was my match at that point. And then
mine too.
Currently, this might shock you, Okada White is my match of the year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't love it that much, but I loved it. I thought it was great. Yeah, my match of the year
is a lot of great matches this year.
Yeah, right. My match of the year is Ospreay Naito from the G1 semis.
Ooh.
Because I love how and it's the counterpoint to why I hate the Danielson Okada match, because Ospreay and Naito had to pivot at the end of that match, and they handled it with grace.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, Ospreay
did.
We heard it, right? We heard it all happen, and I thought that was incredible. So, and that's sort of my counterpoint is this. I also saw that match happen, and that match ended in a way that I thought was incredible. And then I saw the Danielson, Okada situation, and it ended in a way that was deflating. And, I have no doubt these guys are going to win my heart back with this match. But my hope and what I'll be watching for is Danielson going to work Okada's right arm to the point where Danielson eats a left-armed Rainmaker and takes a pin, because that's the equivalent of Okada tapping out.
That's a good point.
It's this thing that never happens. It's never worked, et cetera, et cetera. And, Okada's got to hit it with the other arm because Danielson shredded his right arm. That's what I'm watching for if they're going to do a body part match.
Sure.
And that's what else you do, right?
Danielson's already promising a body part match.
Yeah, exactly. So they've already planted the seed, and now it's time to deliver. So, but the finish is the most interesting thing, because I don't think you can get Danielson to tap out to a money clip or something but they're going to tease it.
Yeah.
They're going to tease it.
So
they're going to grab a hold.
And Danielson's going to be selling that money clip.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody's business, for the love of
absolutely. God. And that's my thing, is I think Moxley comes out at some point, right, to make some sort of intrigue, throwing in a towel, this, that, or the other thing. Yeah, it could be anything, right? And I think maybe that leads to finally getting a Moxley Okada match at some point too.
Yeah. Hey, Forbidden Doors.
Exactly. Why not start that now?
Scotty, what do you feel about this match?
I've had this rant ready. Okay, it's very rare in pro wrestling that you get two all-time greats in a situation like this. In a situation where they let a lot of people down with their first match, and they know that. They let themselves down with that match. Bryan Danielson's a perfectionist. I don't care what he says. He is a perfectionist. You've seen him in the Continental Classic. It might be the best version of Bryan Danielson we've ever seen in terms of going out there, wrestling 6 back-to-back great matches and making every single one must see. Kazuchika Okada in the Tokyo Dome, there may not be anyone in history that's better than that scenario in pro wrestling. It's magic, right? Mix that all together, add in the fact that Bryan Danielson's entering the Tokyo Dome, add in the fact that this is Wrestle Kingdom, add in the fact that the crowd's going to be loud and awesome for this. It is a perfect storm. I'm almost happy they've had that first match, because it now tempers some people's expectations, right? With Omega and Ospreay last year, I think, and maybe this hurts the excitement going into a little bit more, but like Ospreay and Omega obviously had with their match. However, going into last year, if Ospreay and Omega didn't have the greatest match ever, people were going to hate them for it. And, they delivered 100%. This is different. This is a challenge for both of them. This is Okada and home turf. This is Danielson away turf. This is these two cutting these. Well, Danielson cutting this incredible promo, making this personal, right? The story that they keep telling is Danielson's beat Okada twice, right? Once in the singles match, the other the tag match, but he's gotten hurt both matches. I know he did not get hurt in the tag match, but that's the story we play. I think this is going to be brutal. I think this is going to be a 40-minute classic. I think this is going to be everything that first match was supposed to be and more. People like to make sense. Oh, it's 5 stars in the Tokyo Dome. You're damn right it is. Okay. Sometimes, yeah, it is. It is. And I can't wait for this match. I truly can't. I'm someone that's excited actually for the regular main event. I know a lot of people are poo-pooing that one a little bit, but I think this is going to be fantastic, and I think it's going to be everything people wanted and more. And it's, again, in the Tokyo Dome, not in the middle of Toronto randomly. And having to follow Ospreay and Omega too, by the way.
Yeah. And maybe that's something that plays into this, that sort of helps the match's cause here, is that, some people are disappointed by the match, and obviously, the match ended sort of weirdly because of an injury, of course, said injury to Bryan Danielson. That helps this match's cause a little bit, right? It helps, as Scotty said, temper expectations. But hey, it might have been a flat finish because of injury. Well, hopefully, pray to God, knock on all the wood in the entire world, that there isn't another injury in this match, and it leads to a better finish that isn't as flat. It's a match that has the opportunity to improve upon itself. Omega Ospreay had a great match at Wrestle Kingdom, and then the second match comes around, it's like, well, how do you improve that? How do you improve on that last one? This one, it feels very easy to improve on it, and it's from two of the two greatest wrestlers in the world, two of the greatest wrestlers today. It's hard, and I would say
in their primes, arguably
in their primes. We had a previous conversation, Scotty and I, about we both made very solid arguments that Bryan Danielson might be a proper wrestler of the year, not only candidate but winner
because of a broken forearm via Okada. Yes.
Yeah, if Roman Reigns can get conversations about wrestler of the year, then Bryan Danielson for sure could, and dominate that task. But yeah, he is two of the best wrestlers of the world. Obviously, they can improve upon their formula, and now that they've already wrestled before, they got sort of the kinks out before. Let's roll on into the Tokyo Dome and put on a great show. Why not? Why not destroy the main event with this semi right here?
Well, hey, no, I don't think they're going to destroy that.
Yeah, I was just, I think these are two totally separate lanes this year. I don't think, and that I think is a reason that I can look at the show a little more holistically, as opposed to looking at last year's show as, some matches I was excited about. This to me feels like a really traditionally built Wrestle Kingdom card. So, and this match included as that kind of Chris Jericho versus Omega, Ospreay versus Omega, that really high on the card semi-main spot that is catering to I guess the English speaking audience, but truly just catering to that sort of dream match audience. And the term dream match gets thrown around a lot. This is a real one still. Even as number two, it's absolutely a dream match. And for my money, these are the two best professional wrestlers in the world. And right behind them is Will Ospreay. And honestly, you still can't discount Kenny Omega. So I mean, through two Wrestle Kingdoms now, the semi-main, co-main, however you want to, tag it, is including the four best wrestlers in the world.
Yeah.
That works for me. That's fine with me. Let's do that. So I'm stoked. I'm stoked for this match, even though I've been down on, my opinion about their previous match. Cause of course I recognize that wasn't what they wanted to do.
But that's part of it, right? You expect them to have the great match. That's why you're down on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And now they get that chance.
Yeah. And in the best building in the world to have pro wrestling. Well, the second best. It's not Ryogoku.
That's fair.
Ryogoku, a hot Ryogoku. You can't beat that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the main event. IWGP World Heavyweight Title on the line, of course. Sonata defending it against Tetsuya Naito. I'll play my hand here and says, I'm sort of the poo-poo head about this match. I'm not really looking forward to this main event. I understand what's happening. I understand the roll call of it all. Of all the wrestlers, I'm not the biggest Naito fan, and Sonata's year has been interesting, but not the greatest for me in terms of watching. So I would love, please, somebody tell me why I need to be severely interested in this match, why I should be hopeful. It should be a great match. Give me some juice. Give me some juice for this old poo-poo head over here.
Because the fun of pro wrestling is knowing that it's predetermined and them still violating your expectations. So to me, this match is the most fun match because I'm waiting for them to get me to bite. And you know what? They probably are going to. Yeah. I have faith that they're going to, and that's what I wait for. When I'm watching a pro wrestling match, right? Like I look at things, just based on my role with pro wrestling, like I zoom out a little bit, right? I'm not a matches guy. I don't have a notebook. I don't do the star rating thing. So all I'm asking for is I know in this brain of mine that Tetsuya Naito is winning this match, but I need Sonata in this heart of mine to tell me to give me that one flutter where I'm like, he's gonna do it. That one O'Connor roll or a moonsault that Naito kicks out of, or whatever, right? Sonata's got a myriad of ways to end a match. Like, give me one of those that's that 2.999999999999999 kick out. Like that stupid close where I'm like, oh my God, like I'm grabbing my chair, like, oh shoot. So that's
let the record show, audience, we did cut out 12 minutes.
And I became a robot, and it was just I was AI for a minute, just saying 9.
He was a German robot.
Yeah, that was not a glitch in the podcast recording. Like, I need that close of a near fall to get me. And that I think, when I'm watching just a match, right, that's the moment I'm waiting for. Even when I know, even after the fact, even when I know what the finish was, if I'm watching a match that I know the result of, I still want that moment where I forget for that split second. And I'm like, oh, wait, I knew that. Damn it. It's like you just get mad at yourself.
Yeah.
And that moment will happen. And if it doesn't, I'll be a little disappointed and it'll come out a little flat. But, and the reactions to the Tokyo Dome, it sounds different in the Tokyo Dome when that shock thing happens, because you hear the sound of it over the course of this big building, and all of a sudden the sound makes it back to the microphone. So it starts real close, and all of a sudden real far away, they're finally getting the reaction sounds to the microphones. And it's just such a cool thing in that particular building. And I don't want to harp on the Tokyo Dome, it's a meme, right? But like that's the reason it feels different. It just feels bigger in these places. And the story is Naito doing the roll call, and Sonata finally showing up for the big match. But man, I'm waiting for that moment. That's all I'm waiting for. That's all I need, because the rest of it's filler, right? The rest of it's just going to be two great pro wrestlers, like really good in-ring pro wrestlers, going out there and having a really good in-ring match. Like, these are two of the best that you can get in New Japan, for that matter, and two of the biggest domestic stars, right? Not global, worldwide stars. Naito hardly ever leaves the country, and Sonata just hasn't caught on with a different audience. But these are two of they are stars in Japan. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I can't defend Sonata's title reign, because it hasn't really been if you look at the guys he defended against, it's not like he beat the Murderers Row. He beat, Tony Khan put him up against Jack Perry. So, that tells you something. So like, it is time. It's time to move on. It's time to give Naito that moment and the fans that moment. They're all buying a ticket just to hear that dude on a mic afterwards. So I'm looking forward to that. And I love to see, and I said the same thing in 2020. Like, I love to see my friends who are so into Tetsuya Naito have that moment. And I think they all know, everyone that I know that's a Naito person, they know this is that last one. And a lot of them, some that I know are they're going because they think that that's the thing. And I really, really, really hope that this is not a moment where New Japan messes around. I think you got to give the people what they want, right? So I think this is it. That's my way of trying to hype you on this match.
No, I completely agree. Work me, brother. That's
exactly.
That's what any great wrestling match should be. Is I want to be worked. I want to be tricked into believing that it can be true. Because when wrestling is bad, it's bad. But when it's great, when you forget that this whole thing is fake, it makes it all that greater and reminds you, because ultimately what that does, it brings you back to being a child, right? It's the whole believing in Santa Claus thing. It's sorry, Scotty, I might have spoiled that for you. It's the whole idea of like, I'm believing for it to be true because I want it so badly to be true, and I want that too. I would love for that. And you said that all the rest of the match is filler. It's all that rest of the match is ultimately going to be what gets us to that point.
Yes,
is the rest of the match going to make that moment believable? Because anyone can write that moment into a match, but it's whether or not Sonata and Naito can get it together. Not get it together, I shouldn't say it like that. Whether or not Sonata and Naito can put it together to create that moment and give Chris a quick little heart palpitation. Scotty, what do you think about this main event, and how excited are you for it?
I was reminded of the power of Tetsuya Naito on those last 2 nights of the G1. There's no one like Tetsuya Naito in Japan. Like just when that crowd gets into it for this guy, every match is lifted because of it. He could do he could have the most minimal move set come Wrestle Kingdom, and it won't matter because everything they're going to bite on, and that's going to make me also bite on, because this is the last chance. I firmly believe like this is Naito's last shot at doing this. I'm not saying he's going to retire within next year, but this is his last chance probably to main event and get that roll call, and that alone makes this big. But I don't know if there's many things in wrestling that's better than a big Naito main event. I just don't. It almost doesn't even matter who he's facing. And in this spot where he's trying to win the world title and get that last hurrah, it reminds me a lot of Tanahashi when he beat Kenny Omega, right? He got that last hurrah. I know people are down on the build and all that, but it's very much of the theme of a Sonata Naito build, right? Sonata in his mind, he just wants to win. He's not trying to put focus on this is the former LIJ guys. This is the guy 18 years in the making. Watch the incredible video that New Japan put out of previewing this match. It's phenomenal. Like I watched it, I was like, okay, this match is it's everything. Like this is all you need. It's going to be special because Tetsuya Naito, that's what he does. He makes things special. And I know Sonata can live up to these spots. That match with Okada when he won the belt was fantastic. I loved that match. I really did. When he beat Okada, the guy that felt unbeatable at the time, that was great. Obviously, the title reign did not go as hoped. That there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, right? And people have said, "Oh, I wish Tsuji won. I wish that." If Tsuji was coming into this against Naito, I don't know if it would feel a lot different. But there's the history here. There's the natural story to tell between these two. They are trying to be the best. Sonata's trying to finally be that guy. He's finally getting his Tokyo Dome main event. He's finally, in many ways, trying to live up to what Keiji Muto once wanted for him. And a year later, right after Naito was the one in that retirement match, not Sonata, I think you might see a little of that snugness in this match as time goes on, because he wasn't happy watching Sonata stand on the outside in that suit and just kind of accepting that match. Man, that's still, it drives him crazy. Emotions come out when the match happens. It's about being in the ring at the end of the day. And I think when these two get in the ring face to face, crowd going Naito, Naito, and they'll chant Sonata too, because like Chris said, domestically, these two are unbelievably popular. It's going to be hot. It's going to drive it home. And I think ultimately it will be a great match with the perfect ending, with Naito getting the win, getting the roll call, and kind of the storybook ending for him, really. It doesn't matter about it, really. Nothing after that matters for Naito's reign. It's about that.
I'm going to pitch this one out here. Does Naito need the roll call to have the storyline ending?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. I put that out here as just, this is the devil's argument, where the devil's
his knees need the roll call.
I bring that up because it's like, New Japan isn't afraid of like not necessarily pulling the trigger, but not
you're right. I
sure. Oh no,
Naito before.
that's why people are freaked out.
Yeah,
because they're like, well, they did it.
And they gave him the title. He finally got that title. He completed the Okada story. Does this roll call mean that much that he has to get it? And I agree with you guys.
Kenta's a bastard. That's why.
I thought that ruled.
I did too.
I think most people did. And then they realized once it was all over, they're like, oh shit, we didn't get the roll call.
Yeah. Yeah. I only bring that up as a point of, is the roll call that important Is it something that it can be a dangling Chad onto on Naito's career? Or is it something that is required? I agree with you guys that he's probably going to win and get the roll call and everything, but I think it's something to discuss. That sort of this outside chance of, instead of a LIJ roll call, we get a just 5 guys roll call. I don't know.
God,
you
get
know,
out of here.
it's something to bring up.
While Scotty was talking, I had this kind of epiphany. This Wrestle Kingdom, in various ways for most of these matches, a lot of people are pointing to them all being rematches, right?
Yeah.
I don't think this Wrestle Kingdom is about rematches. I think it's about, in so many different ways. For every match, it's sort of a different way. But this whole card is about redemption. So Naito wants redemption for someone taking away his big moment at the Dome.
Yeah.
Okada and Danielson want redemption for not delivering what was expected of them at Forbidden Door.
Sure. We're really just each other breaking my arm. And
yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to go full storyline with it, absolutely, right? You know, as you go down the card,
about the 3-way, unsure about
the you know, but and then Junior Heavyweight Championship, right? Like, these guys had a match at the Tokyo Dome. They had a big match with a silent crowd. Their best match ever was in front of a silent crowd. They want the redemption of doing it in front of a raucous Tokyo Dome with Hiromu and El Desperado. And you can go on and on down the card. And like, you know, even Shingo and Tama, that's a rematch, but they want the redemption, or Tama Tonga wants the redemption of his title back, the one title that he's ever held as a singles, right? Like, you can tell that story all the way down the card almost. And so that, I think, to me now, that's my theme, right? Like, what does that redemption look like for Tetsuya Naito to get that moment, to protect that moment, to have those LIJ guys come out and protect that moment with him, which is what he didn't do in 2020 and what he hasn't done historically. Will they be ringside? Will they be nearby? Will they chase him off? Just 5 guys is not an interference unit. So I don't worry too much about during the match, but I worry a little bit about after the match. But it also puts Sonata in or near the ring for that roll call. And I think that that's an important, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, someone mentioned Evil coming out as the kind of in the Kenta role, and them running him off, but then Naito including him in the roll call because they ran him off. Like, there's a lot of things happening there. So,
or even if Sonata runs him off, that'd be fun.
Right. He's like, no, he beat me fair and square. I'm going to run you away. You know, I think that there's something there. There's something romantic about that. So I think that's kind of my final say about Wrestle Kingdom. I think it's Wrestle Kingdom 18 : Redemption.
Ooh, there it is, folks. There it is. The Chris Samsa sum up of Wrestle Kingdom 18. Well, if you're not excited, get excited. Of course, January 4th is the date. New Japan World is where you can watch it. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. Of course, stopping in on your podcast tours. We appreciate you making the time for us.
I appreciate you guys. It's always a good time. I really do like to chat with you guys. Different perspective than some of the other groups that I get to talk to. So always a good time. Always open to it. Let's not wait so long to do it again. All right.
Yes, please. Awesome. Yes, please.
I'll admit something. I'm kind of like a little kid when Wrestle Kingdom comes around. So like these top matches, I'm just gonna talk myself into them no matter what. Because at the end of the day, that's all I care about. I'm trying to get myself amped up for it, because that's how I love staying up for this show. It's something I do every single year. I've done it since the Jericho Kenny one, and I won't stop. You know, it's like, and I think a lot of people probably have that ritual now with this show, and I think that's part of the fun. So I just wanted to add that in there as we head into the latest and greatest Wrestle Kingdom show.
Yeah, and I found a pizza place that delivers till 1 a.m. So I'm
that's more important.
Yeah, so I'm a winner. I get a fresh pie, and then I watch myself a Rambo and try to stay awake.
Winner, pizza dinner, indeed. Well, that's fantastic. I can't wait for New Japan. I can't wait for Wrestle Kingdom. I think it's going to kick off a very interesting new era, potentially, let's say. for New Japan. So I'm very excited to see what that could shape out, what that can look like, or what sort of foundations we're laying here at Wrestle Kingdom 18. Again, Chris, thank you so much for coming on to Ring Post Radio. Where can people find you, and where can people find more of what you do?
Yeah, best place to find me right now is Twitter. That's really unfortunate, but I hate to point people to Twitter intentionally, but that's where I am. So at the Chris Samsa on Twitter. Anything I do, I'll make sure is linked there, including this podcast and others. So otherwise, I'm around. You probably won't be able to get away from me if you're paying attention to Wrestle Kingdom, and I am sorry for that, but also you're welcome. So
his seeds of influence have gotten into AEW, so he's
just a little, not like the New Japan world, but happy to talk AEW anytime.
Perfect. Well, Scotty, any final words before we get to Wrestle Kingdom to leave our folks at home?
Oh man, I'm tired. I've recorded for 5 hours already. I gotta record again after this. I'm good.
Perfect.
I feel you.
Oh man. Appreciate again, Chris, for coming on the show. Scotty, we'll talk to you. We'll talk again on Sunday. Or I guess Sunday in the future, the past, I guess. This episode coming out later. Forget that. I'm going home. I'm going to bed. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time on Ring Post Radio.